Okay. Good morning, folks, and welcome. We begin today a new mimer, new Hasidic discourse that was said in 1962 by our dear Rebbe, and it's based on a Hasidic discourse that was said in 1932, 30 years earlier, by the Frierdiker Rebbe, his father-in-law, the previous Rebbe, at the engagement of his third daughter, Represent Shana, engagement to Mendel, Menachem Mendel, HaKayin, Horenstein. That was a engagement party on Lag BaOmer. And this is a Lag BaOmer mimer, the 33rd day of the Omer, Hasidic discourse. The Rebbe said again, 1962, just a few years ago, 63 years ago. Okay, it begins with the famous words from David HaMelech, from King David, from Tehillim, Psalm 133, Shir Amalis David, a song of ascent by David. Hinema Tovim Anoyim, behold how good and how pleasant, Shevis Achim Gam Yachad, when brothers dwell together, when they come together, dwell together. That's the first verse. Second verse, Kishem, which we'll get into later. Actually, you know what? We'll leave that because the um, discourse brings it up later, but not now. Okay. How good it is. This is an old camp song, Jewish camp song. Hin There's other melodies. Hine mahatov umanohayim sheves achim gam yachad. So the previous Rebbe on this verse, he is exacting on that says brothers that dwell right together with brotherly love, but it says gam yachad, also together. Sheves achim means the brothers are dwelling together. Gam yachad, also together. What's the also together? Right? What is that adding? So he explains that the achim here are speaking about male-female souls that are connected to each other, like a chassan and kala, like a bride and a groom. Right? Remember, the previous Rebbe was saying this to a new bride, his youngest daughter Shana, which, by the way, her and her husband were murdered by the Nazis, Yimach Shamam, Hashem Yenakim Damam. Which means may their memory be obliterated, may their name be obliterated. The Nazis, Yimach Shamam. And any Nazi today. So this is what the dwelling of brothers and coming close with a connection that is coming here, brothers, meaning bride and groom, right? Bride and groom coming together by engagement. Now, engagement here doesn't mean betrothal, right? This was an engagement party, not a betrothal, because in the last hundreds of years, I don't know how many hundreds of years exactly, um, betrothal and chuppah are done together in one ceremony, one time, as opposed, as we've mentioned in the previous slide, was a nice continuation from the previous discourse, that they were separated by 6 to 12 months, the betrothal. So here he's saying engagement, because it indeed was an engagement party, right? And that this is a preparation, the engagement, right? Sheves Achim, the sitting of coming together, the dwelling of these two souls, Chassid and Kala, bride and the groom, by the connection that's made by engagement. There is a connection by engagement, right? It's not two halves of one soul. That's kiddush and betrothal, but there is a connection. And then what does gam yachad in the verse mean? Marriage. Because yachad means coming together, united, union. That's marriage. And he continues. So he continues the mimer and says that the Zohar explains this verse. What does it mean? The dwelling of brothers also together. It's in reference not to the bride and the groom, but Israel, God, Holy One, blessed be He, as he's referred to, which is a reference to the male of the divine. And Knesset Israel, the congregation of Israel, which means the font, the source of souls of the Jewish people, which is the feminine part of the divine. The feminine part of the divine. That's what it means. The dwelling of brothers, right? Meaning God and the source of the Jewish souls, which is above, right? Not here, right? In the spiritual source. And then what does it mean? Gam yachad, also together, means to include the Jewish people down here in this physical world. They're not just the way the souls are united with God above, but the way they are down here too. That's what it means here, right? So that's the previous Rebbe says in the Maimer. The Yesh Leimar, the Rebbe says we could say that the connection of the explanation that Achim, brothers, is bride and the groom, right? With the explanation of the Zohar that it goes on, God, Kadosh Baruch Hu, together with Knesset Israel, the source of the Jewish souls above, is what's the connection between the two? What's the connection? Two explanations. There must be a connection between them. Is that the Chassid and Kala, the bride and the groom down here, they are an evolutionary process, or devolve, if you will, from the Chassid and Kala above, the bride and the groom above. Who is the bride and groom above? The groom is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God, and the bride is Knesset Israel, the source of the Jewish souls above. Therefore, he brings in the discourse. The Zohar, it says, that the brothers over here that dwell together is God and Knesset Israel, because this is the foundation to the explanation of brothers, the way it refers to the bride and the groom, which is, again, he was speaking to a bride and a groom because it was the engagement of his daughter, Shena, to Rebbe Shena to Reb Menachem Mendel Horenstein. Okay. Okay. Seemingly, we could add something to this now, right? So the Rebbe is saying that the two explanations that the previous Rebbe brought down in his discourse, they're connected, right? One, right, there's male and female above that evolve or devolve, if you will, to bride and groom above, that below. Bride and groom above, there's bride and groom below. So seemingly we could add in the explanation in the Mimer these two ideas, and also Gam Yachad, that they're also together, right? There's 2 points over here. There's 2 ideas. There's connection and then union, right? Sheves Achim, brothers dwelling together. Hine mahatoivu manohayim sheves Achim. Behold, Hine, behold, matov, how good, noim, and how pleasant, sheves Achim, the coming together, the dwelling, the sitting together, the coming together, the dwelling together of brothers, right? Gam yachad, also together, also united. So there's 2 points here, right? Those 2 points. So we can add over here that also to the explanation that the commentators give on Tehillim. Now there's a third explanation that Rebbe is adding. The commentators on Tehillim, on Psalms, they explain that what does it mean, brothers? Who are the brothers, right? We have brothers, meaning bride and groom. We have brothers, God and the source of Jewish souls. And then there's, hey, the simple meaning, speaking about the Jewish people, they're brothers, right? The love and the affection between them. There's 2 levels in general. 2 levels of connection between fellow Jews. There is that which is like engagement, not betrothal, engagement. There's and that's called a connection. That's a connection. And then through that you come afterwards to union. From connection to union. So accordingly, we could say as follows, says that which he brings in the discourse, the explanation of the Zohar, right? That the Zohar, remember, explained that Sheves Achim Gam Yachad, the dwelling of brothers, also united, is going on God and the source of the souls of the Jewish people is in order to bring that, in order that there should be a love. How is that there's a love between Jews down here, that it should be in a manner of yachad, oneness, union, like that oneness that there is in marriage between the bride and the groom, right? In actual living together of a union. How's that? Because it's revealed from above, as we're seeing everything that's coming from above, below, right? Bride and groom above, bride and groom below. So it's coming from above, the union that there is between God and the Jewish people. When that's revealed, then there's a union. There's a coming together, a connection, and a union between the Jewish people down here amongst themselves. So accordingly, we could explain. Accordingly, we can explain that which is written in the verse, that the verse continues, right? The verse continues, the second verse that says, Kishem and Atoiv, what, in other words, the verse is, the second verse in Tehillim, King David, right? In verse, in chapter 133. Kishem and Atoiv, this coming together and union, right? Two steps, is like precious oil, Kishem and Atoiv, al haroish, that's upon the head. Yered al azokim, that flows in abundance down on the beard. Zakan are, the beard of Aaron. Sheyered, that comes down and flows further, al pibim midaisav, that rests upon his garments. Now, of course, that's all metaphorical, right? So based on that, in order that that verse, in order that there should be a union, because in order that there's a union between God and the Jewish people, that it should affect the Jewish people amongst themselves down here, that there should be ava v'achva, a love and brotherly connection that's real, to the extent that it should be a yachad, together, union, right? A complete union. Will be, how will it happen? Because will draw down the shemen hatoiv, the good oil. As will be explained, we just did chapter 1, and this will be explained in chapter 8, which we need to wait for. Now, this is a springboard for what's coming up next. Right? We're not going to leave everything we just said. We're going to go into the next part of the Mimer, chapter 2. I'm just going to give a little brief intro. All of this that we just explained, which I'm not going to repeat now, will be understood by first prefacing something else that the Zohar says based on this verse. The Zohar says that happened one time that the world needed rain, right? The world needed rain. Now, I don't know if it meant, I don't think it meant the entire world necessarily, but definitely meant Israel, right? They went to the Rashbi, Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, who passed away on Lag BaOmer, right? And he was a holy, great man, and they went to him, hey, we need rain. Israel is in a drought. We need rain. And he said a drush, he said a Torah teachings based on this verse. He said a Torah teachings based on this verse. And guess what happened? Yorad Geshem Matar, it started to rain. All right. May God rain upon us. All good things. We'll pick that up tomorrow. A good Chodesh, everybody. It's Rosh Chodesh, second day. Rashi will be,